Greetings. So, Full Gear's done. And here are my thoughts of it. Oh. It is late right now. I am slightly tired, so if I miss anything, if I miss anything important, you'll have to excuse that. Also, I can barely remember the order of tonight, even though I just saw the show. So if you see me looking this way, it's because I have the Wikipedia page up, just so I can remember what order the matches were in. That's all I'm gonna be using. So anyway, started with the buy-in, of course. Thunder Rosa and Hikaru Shida versus Nyla Rose and Jamie Hayter. In terms of what happened in this match that's memorable. I guess there was one moment in which Nyla Rose said, "I better help her up," when Hikaru Shida was on the outside, and just as she got up, she got nailed with a clothesline. But the match ended with Hikaru Shida reversing a beast bomb into a surprise roll-up to win the match. I was a bit surprised by this. I mean, not that Rosa and Shida won. I expected that. What I didn't expect was that Shida was going to get the pin. I assumed that Rosa was going to get the pin, to set her up for the future. But Shida wins, and I'm not sure if AEW functions like WWE, where Shida just pinned Nyla Rose, so now when they have their quarterfinal in the TBS Championship match, Nyla's going to win. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Oh yeah, and Serena Deeb was in the crowd. I remember that. She didn't do anything. She kind of distracted Shida at one point, but that was it. So, there's that. Then we have the opening match, which was MJF versus Darby Allin. This match was very interesting. It was a lot of back and forth throughout the match, with them trading blows back and forth here and there. One particular moment I liked was that after they traded blows back and forth and done a lot of so-called liquid wrestling, where they just flowed into different moves, they once did a moment where they got out of each other's move. And usually what some other wrestlers do is they stop the liquid wrestling and just stare at each other, in order to let everyone applaud. It's like, oh, great athleticism, even though it kind of takes you out of the match a little bit. See Ricochet versus Will Ospreay, something like that. But I like the fact that as soon as they were done, MJF did that, but Darby held his arm and just sold after that. Yeah, there was a lot of back and forth. One moment I really liked was MJF and Darby just trading roll-ups back and forth, like 1-2, switch the roll, 1-2, and at one point they just start rolling around the ring. Rings, like not even counting pinfalls, they're just rolling, like pinfalls. Then let's see. Towards the end of the match, both. At one point in the match, Darby goes for some sort of Hurricane Rana, but MJF counters it into a powerbomb on his knee, which really screws up his knee. I'm not entirely sure if that was the point where his knee got screwed up, but then throughout the match, they focused a lot on the fact that MJF's knee got really hurt. For example, I think there were several times where Darby just did a lot of chop blocks to the knee, focusing specifically on that. And then towards the end, when Darby goes for a coffin drop, but MJF gets the knees up, but because he did, it really screwed up his knees. I think after that happens also, we see Sean Spears walking down the ramp with a chair, but then he gets cut off by Sting. Then Wardlow comes out, but he gets attacked by Sting in his back, and then he chases both of them out of the ring. Then MJF gets to the outside, walks over to the Timekeeper's area, and gets Darby's skateboard. However, he doesn't hit Darby with it. He takes it and rolls it over to Darby and asks him to hit him. Darby takes it, thinks about hitting him, but then decides to hand the skateboard over to the referee. The referee is then distracted with getting the skateboard away, which allows MJF to get out the Dynamite Diamond ring, nail Darby in the face, and then lock in a headlock pin. 1, 2, 3. MJF wins. No surprise there. Not really that surprised that he won, but hey, I really enjoyed that match. It was a pretty fun match. Next up, I think it was the AEW Tag Team title match. If this is to be believed, yeah, I think it is. We had FTR versus the Lucha Brothers. What can I say about this match? Really, I don't remember much from it. It was a fun match, don't get me wrong. There was a lot of cool spots, including I think that FTR stole the Lucha Brothers finish and used it on them, but it only got a 2 count. But I don't really remember much of this match, really, outside of the finish, I believe. Where at one point, I think the Lucha Brothers has the match won, but Tully Blanchard stops one of them. And then both members roll out. I think Dax Harwood is the legal man, but they put on the masks that they used to technically get a title shot against, technically earn a shot at the AAA Tag Team titles and win them. But they try some sort of twin magic stuff to switch the opponent, but it backfires, and Cash Wheeler, wearing a mask, gets hit with the Lucha Brothers finisher, which I don't know the name of. 1, 2, 3, and even though they unmasked them and shows that the legal man wasn't the one who got pinned, apparently it still counts. The Lucha Brothers retain. They're still the tag team champions. Next up, sorry, the screen went to black. The match I accidentally forgot to put into my brief prediction video. The finals of the AEW World Title Tournament. Bryan Danielson versus Miro. I put a disclaimer in the description of that video stating that I forgot about that match, and I was debating a little bit with myself whether to pick Danielson or Miro, and I ultimately landed on Miro. That was a poor decision because Danielson ended up winning the match. He won the match in a rather weird way also. Because he won the match by hitting a DDT, a sort of tornado DDT from the corner, then lock in some sort of guillotine, and Miro was apparently knocked out from that, and it counted as a submission. So yeah. As for the match itself, it was pretty good. It's like a lot of hard hitting. You expect that from a Danielson match. And Miro is, of course, a powerhouse. What's funny is that while I was watching the match, I had to think about whether or not Bryan Danielson and Miro had fought before, when they were in WWE as Daniel Bryan and Miro and Rusev. And they had a Money in the Bank qualifier match on SmackDown. I don't exactly remember which year it was. But in that match, Rusev won. So now it's 1-1 technically if you want to count across promotions. Just saying. Anyway, there was a lot of neat back and forth, a lot of hard hittings, a lot of submission holds reversed back and forth. Ultimately, with like I said, the way Bryan won. I feel bad because I did enjoy the match, but I can't really remember much of stuff that really left an impact on me that happened in that match. It's like I know Miro hit the game over, or at least the slightly weaker version, which is basically a camel clutch. He didn't really bend the back properly backwards to get the win, and I know Danielson got in the label lock, but Miro was able to break it. I am not sure what else I can really say about it. I guess I'll move on. Next up was oh boy, this match was crazy as hell. The Falls Count Anywhere match, Christian Cage and the Jurassic Express versus the Superkliq, which is the Young Bucks and Adam Cole, baby. Sorry. Anyway, baby. Okay, now I did it correctly. Anyway, this match was, being a Falls Count Anywhere match, it kind of went exactly like WWE in that Falls Count Anywhere also means no disqualification, apparently. So it basically was a hardcore match, because I think that's the actual termination for no disqualification and Falls Count Anywhere. Anyway, this match also I think this was the first match to feature our first letting of blood, because at one point I think it's Christian Cage who throws Adam Cole into the turnbuckle, and when you next see his head, he is covered in blood. There's a lot of there's some tables brought in. At one point, I think it's Matt Jackson throwing Jungle Boy into the corner, but Jungle Boy jumps onto the apron where Adam Cole is standing and hits a Hurricane Rana off the apron through the table. Meanwhile, on the other side, Nick Jackson hits a diving elbow drop onto Luchasaurus, who's also on the table. Then I don't remember who. I think it was one of the Young Bucks brings in a black bag, which of course contains a lot of thumbtacks. Then they get those thumbtacks and shoves them into Jungle Boy's mouth and hit him with a double super kick. And then, because there were a lot of thumbtacks all over the place, they suddenly just are covered. The ring is just covered in thumbtacks. So a lot of wrestlers just get thumbtacks everywhere, even though they weren't planning to. For example, at one point, they have a ladder set up in the corner. Christian has one of the Young Bucks. I don't remember which one. He has one in a DDT position. He goes up on the second rope, and a thumbtack bounces off the ring and hits him in the face, and then he hits a tornado DDT onto the ladder. Then at one point, I think it's Matt Jackson who tries to escape tries to escape the match up the ramp, but then Jungle Boy attacks him, locks in a snare trap, but it's broken up by the other Young Buck, I think. Then they brawl up the ramp to the stage, at which point Adam Cole hits I think it's Christian with a Panama Sunrise from the stage railing. Sorry. Then Adam Cole pulls out another black bag, this time containing thumbtacks attached to a knee pad. So they all put on the knee pad, then hits a triple BTE trigger onto Luchasaurus, but it's broken up but the pinfall is broken up by Jungle Boy. Then they start fighting a bit before I think it's Matt Jackson gets... No, it's Nick Jackson. Nick Jackson gets speared and rolls to the outside. Luchasaurus catches Adam Cole, hits a choke slam from the stage onto Nick, Brandon Cutler, and Michael Nakazawa. Then Luchasaurus does a fucking shooting star press from the stage onto everyone on the outside of the stage. Then on the stage, Matt Jackson gets pulled onto a chair. Then Christian gets another chair, but then Jungle Boy says that I'm going to do it. He takes the chair and hits a concerto onto Matt and pins him for the 1, 2, 3. Christian and Luchasaurus wins. Oh yeah, I forgot one more thing. There's one point where Christian Cage brawls with Nick Jackson into the crowd, and they make it all the way to an entrance to the arena. He's then attacked by Brandon Cutler and Michael Nakazawa. He's able to fight off both of them. He then climbs on top of the archway to the entrance and jumps off it onto Nick, Nakazawa, and Cutler. May I remind you all, Christian Cage only like a year ago was considered retired due to injuries. Crazy. But yeah, that was that match. It was crazy, but it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that match. Okay, next up, another tag match. It's Malakai Black and Andrade El Idolo versus Pac and Cody Rhodes. And all I can say about this match is, oh my, do people fucking hate Cody. I can understand why, but man, it's like, the cheers for Malakai, Andrade, and Pac are nothing compared to the boos that Cody's getting. Like, people fucking hate Cody. Anyway, the structure of this match is essentially Pac and Cody really can't stand each other, but they have to work together. And while Andrade and Malakai seem to be a bit more on the same page, they still are not exactly on the same page entirely. Either because they constantly tag each other out, like Cody and Pac are doing, though a lot less aggressive. But yeah, it kind of works like a standard tag match where Pac gets also the one who has to fight off Malakai and Andrade's teamwork to set up for a hot tag for Cody, which not exactly the best idea to have him be the hot tag, considering that people fucking hate him. Hell, Arn Anderson and Jose, the managers in this match, gives a lot more positive reaction than Cody does. Hey, AEW, you might want to get ready to turn him heel. I assume they know what they're doing. They must know that people hate him. They're not gonna they gotta understand that at this point he probably has as much heat as 2015 till 19. No, actually it's 20. 2015 till 20 Roman Reigns. You know, the big dog, the one that sucks. Anyway, let's see. The finish, I believe, is that they fight to the outside. Malakai gets knocked into the apron. Cody runs in and clotheslines him over the barricade, so they're both on the outside. Pac and Andrade are in the ring. Andrade. Oh yeah, and there's one more thing I should actually mention, is that I'm not going to mention it all the way throughout the night, but I might mention it a couple more times. But there's a lot of Eddie Guerrero references throughout the night, and I had to look it up, and I sort of understand why, but at the same time, this is... I understand that it's the United States, so it makes sense there, but I'm Norwegian. I'm 5 hours ahead of... Actually, I think it's 6 hours ahead of people from the United States. So when I'm watching the pay-per-view, it's not the 13th of November, it's 1 o'clock, it's 2 o'clock. Like, the pay-per-view started at 2 o'clock on the 14th of November. So, yeah. So the reference is lost there, because the reference is, of course, that the 13th of November was the day that Eddie Guerrero died. But it's not the 13th when I'm watching the show. So I get the reference, but it doesn't really hit the same. I mean, still... Yeah. But you see a lot of people doing Three Amigos throughout the night, and two people in particular has a lot of significance about it. But anyway, I was just reminded of it because I think Andrade did a Three Amigo, or at least attempted a Three Amigo. Anyway, towards the end of the match, Andrade is going for the hammerlock, but Pac is able to turn it around, knocks Andrade down, hits the Black Arrow. 1, 2, 3. Cody and Pac wins. Okay, I was wrong there. I thought they were gonna have, well, because of the communication error, they were not gonna have it. And I'm surprised that they didn't just want to piss off people by having Cody win, but I guess to get people to be happy about this victory, they had Pac win. So, yeah. That's that. I mean, good match overall. It's like, you know, you have four guys. It's like, no matter what you feel about Cody, he is a good wrestler, and so are all the other three people in this match. So, really good match. Next up, oh man, this is the next match was the AEW Women's title match, and I feel my opinion on this is going to be a bit unfair, because this match was probably really good. It's like it was a good back and forth here and there, and it was a good showcase for Ty Conti. It's just that it was hard to get invested because it was so fucking obvious that, like, I was so damn certain that there was no way in hell that Britt Baker was going to lose this match. Like, even when she acted like a dumb heel, and Rebel and Jamie Hayter distracted the referee, she was able to hit a curb stomp onto the steel steps. Then she got her back in the ring, hit another curb stomp, but instead of going for the pin, she tried to go for the lockjaw, and then Ty Conti was able to reverse that. I didn't never believe for a second that she was going to actually get the pinfall, and lo and behold, it's like she got a few hope spots, hit a moonsault onto Jamie and Rebel, hit the Thai KO. I think that's the name of her finisher. Maybe, I'm not entirely sure, but it didn't work. Then Britt Baker tried the lockjaw again. She was able to reverse into a roll up, but then Britt Baker reversed into her own roll up. 1, 2, 3. Britt Baker retains. And again, maybe it's a me thing, but it's hard for me to really get invested in a match when I am damn certain of the result. And I think it's specifically in a title match, or a match that has some significance, that isn't just there for just bullshit. It's like the 6-man tag, or later on Inner Circle versus Top Team, although that one has some issue as well. I'll get to that. But ultimately, I guess I got taken out of it because it's a title match, but it's such a foregone conclusion who's going to win that I didn't really care. And I know that's unfair. It's like, I can watch back matches where I already know who's going to already know who the winner is, and I can still enjoy those. It's just for some reason it kind of took me out of it. Maybe it's a me thing. Maybe it was a good match. It's just, it was the match on the show where it's like, I felt like this was a foregone conclusion was going to win. It's like, yeah, you could say that about most of the title matches, but there was an inkling that, maybe they would have FTR win the title. Like, it wasn't set in stone that FTR was going to win. And especially with the fact that Bryan Danielson won the tournament, you could easily make an argument that they could have actually had Kenny Omega retain his championship. So, I'm just saying that this match, there was absolutely no scenario in my head where I said Ty Conti is going to win the AEW Women's title. No way in hell. And I was right. So, yeah. It's unfair, I know. But, yeah, it kind of took me out of it. Next up. Another interesting one. Eddie Kingston versus CM Punk. This match was pretty interesting as well, because Eddie comes out, calls for CM Punk to come out. He doesn't. CM Punk comes out. He has a bit of a weird attire. I'm guessing it's more MMA inspired because he's wearing normal shorts rather than either his wrestling tights or his trunks. He gets in the ring. The two start to stare off a lot. The bell hasn't even rung yet, and then out of nowhere, Eddie Kingston hits a back fist that knocks CM Punk flat out. Like, he's just out. The match hasn't started yet. Punk then gets up, and the two just starts brawling, and finally the referee decides, you know what, well, I'm just going to start this. And the two just starts brawling all over the place. Eddie Kingston even hitting. Then Eddie Kingston tosses CM Punk into the turnbuckle, and Punk starts bleeding. So now you have two times where we've seen blood. And then Eddie Kingston takes the blood from CM Punk's forehead and just smears it all over his face. So Eddie Kingston's not bleeding, but he's also covered in CM Punk's blood. Anyway, the match itself is a lot of hard hitting back and forth all over the place. And like I said, there were some. one particular thing is that CM Punk, a man who's actually been in the ring with Eddie Guerrero, wanted to pay a tribute, so he hit the Three Amigos, and I think he went for a frog splash, but I'm not entirely sure if he did. But either way, I don't think it worked. Anyway, then towards the end of the match, then at one point, there's one point where CM Punk actually does a tribute, I guess, to John Cena, where he hits a shoulder tackle, hits another shoulder tackle, hits a spin out power bomb, and then he holds up his hand like this, but instead of going for the "you can't see me," he does this to Eddie Kingston. Then Kingston holds up the finger as well, and Punk just starts wailing on the guy. Then at one point, Kingston's able to take CM Punk down. He then mocks CM Punk with his go to sleep, only to be caught by CM Punk, and he hits him with a go to sleep of his own. Then CM Punk. But CM Punk is so exhausted he can't go for the pin yet. Then he dodges on Eddie Kingston's attack and starts wailing knees upon knees upon knees on Kingston before picking up for a second go to sleep. 1, 2, 3. CM Punk is the winner. And one thing that occurred, and there is one thing that I know it doesn't really have anything to do with the video, but with the match itself, but it's still such a surreal feeling to me to be sitting here and seeing CM Punk in a match. Like, I probably should have this feeling when I saw him at All Out, but it's still surreal to me that I'm seeing CM Punk actually wrestling and still having good matches, because this was a really good match. It was a good story leading into it, and it was a really good match to boot. Anyway, the end after the match is over, CM Punk reaches out his hand to Eddie Kingston. Kingston sees this and walks out of the ring and shoves the camera on the way out. So yeah, pretty good match though. Next up, we have the Inner Circle versus Men of the Year, which is Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page, and American Top Team. Dan Lambert, Junior Dos Santos, and what's the other guy's name? Andre Avareski? I'm not entirely sure. They're MMA people, and I've never really seen. I'm not much of an MMA guy. Anyway, this match, it starts off as a regular match, mostly between. It mostly starts as a regular tag match, mostly just to show. It's mostly Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page that takes most of this. Makes sense, because you have two guys who are normally MMA guys, and one guy who is. I'm not trying sure what Dan Lambert is. Is like, I don't know, but he seems to be one of those guys who isn't a wrestler in any way, but he's there. He is good at his job though, because people fucking hate this guy. But anyway, the match goes normally, and then at one point, Junior Dos Santos gets tagged in, and he actually has a decent showing, and then he does a slightly awkward moonsault, but it's not the worst. He then tags in Lambert, Jericho gets tagged in, and suddenly all hell breaks loose as they start just brawling all over the place. It was mentioned that this was a Minneapolis street fight, which meant that the ring was surrounded by a lot of weird equipment, like hockey sticks, skis, a toaster, a bedpan, no, not bedpan, a baking sheet. Jericho at one point pulls out a Prince logo, like from like the artist Prince. I have no idea if Minneapolis has some significance to Prince. I'm Norwegian, and I barely know any history about my own city, so why would I know about one in the United States? As for spots, like outside of the weapon shots, there's one spot that I liked was Santana and Ortiz get Ethan Page into the ring. One locks him in a Boston Crab. Then the other guy, who also has Scorpio Sky in some sort of gory bomb position, then locks him in a camel clutch. Then Sammy Guevara gets in the ring and takes a United States football and spikes it into Scorpio Sky's face. Yeah, if you're wondering why I called it a United States football, remember that what people in the United States call soccer is what the rest of the world calls football. So, and we don't really have another word for those things you call football. I'm just saying. Anyway, other spots. One thing I forgot to mention is that before the match starts, we show in the crowd that a somewhat legendary wrestler by the name of Baron von Raschke is sitting at ringside. He is apparently known as the Master of the Iron Claw. Anyway, the reason I bring him up is because towards the end of the match, Ethan Page has knocked down. I think it's one of either Santana or Ortiz. I'm not entirely sure. And he yells in the face of a lady who I think has some significance to the inner circle. I'm not entirely sure what. But then Baron von Raschke doesn't like this and hits Page with the Iron Claw before getting booted by I think it's Ortiz. No, Santana, I think. Ethan Page gets booted. Then I think he gets then Ethan Page gets thrown over the guard rail before I think it's Ortiz asks a security guard to go get down on his knees, and he jumps off the security guard to hit the other guy. At one point, they also bring out a ladder, put Scorpio Sky on a table, and then Sammy Guevara literally does a Jeff Hardy spot by going to the top of the ladder and hitting a swanton onto Scorpio from through the table. Anyway, we get to the finish, and Dan Lambert and Jericho are in the ring. Jericho beats the hell out of Lambert, goes for the lion salt, but then gets hit in the face by Junior Dos Santos. Lambert goes for the pin, but Jericho kicks out. He gets a kendo sticks, beats the living tar out of Lambert. Lambert beats the hell out of Junior Dos Santos. Then, as a tribute to Eddie Guerrero, because those two were close friends, both in WCW and WWE, I think, he gets up on the top rope, hits a frog splash. 1, 2, 3. Inner Circle win. One thing I will say about this match, though, that I didn't like was that constant camera cuts all over the place, so you couldn't really get a good look at anything. And I kind of understand why, because, all the non-wrestlers involved in this match, but yeah, I feel like this match might have been a bit longer than it probably should have been, which might explain what happened next, but we'll get to that in a moment. Anyway, the match is over. Then we cut to Tony Schiavone on the stage, And he says that he wants to introduce a special guest, and that special guest is Jay Lethal, former star in Impact Wrestling, I think former Cruiserweight champion, and possibly something else, I'm not entirely sure, and former long-running Ring of Honor champion. Anyway, he says that he is now all elite, and he asks that this week on Dynamite that he can have a match with TNT champion Sammy Guevara. Sammy comes back out and says, "You're on." So there's a very interesting reason to watch Dynamite this week. Jay Lethal versus Sammy Guevara for the TNT Championship. That'll be interesting. And while that's announced, we also announced that another interesting match is coming up as as Orange Cassidy is going to be teaming with Tomohiro Ishii to take on I'm not entirely sure who the opponent's going to be, but the big point here is that Tomohiro Ishii is going to be on Dynamite teaming with Orange Cassidy. So yeah, two interesting surprises there. But finally, we get to the main event. Hangman Adam Page versus Kenny Omega for the AEW Championship. So Hangman gets a very special entrance where he essentially, it's computer generated though, but he walks a horse through the streets leading into the arena with computer screens showing his match with Jericho where he failed to become the first AEW World Champion, him costing the Young Bucks a very important match, him and Kenny falling out and stuff like that. But one thing I found very amusing was that while he was entering, his nameplate had something over his name where it said, "We're proud of you, graphics team," because the graphics team usually has some sort of joke around Hangman, so that was a nice touch. Anyway, Kenny comes out with Don Callis, and we have our match. And Don Callis gets involved very early, grabbing Hangman's foot and Kenny constantly distracting the referee while Don Callis attacks him. A lot of pokes in the eye from Kenny, but Hangman constantly fighting out of it. A lot of forearms and a lot of suplexes, attempts at V triggers, even from Hangman trying to do the same thing. But at one point is that one thing that I certainly remember is that at one point I think Hangman hits a very devastating move onto Kenny. He then gets on the apron, goes for a buckshot lariat, and it hits the referee. And hits it on the referee. And I kid you not, right after he did that, the fucking stream cut out for me. Like it said it had some sort of error. So I had to refresh, and when I got back, Don Callis was on the floor. Kenny tried to do something with the AEW title, but Hangman reversed it into a Deadeye, but of course the referee was out. Aubrey Edwards ran down, 1-2 kick out. I don't know if I missed something huge. I don't think I did, and I don't really want to wait for the replay to show up, so I'm just gonna assume it wasn't that important. Important that I missed that little part of the match, and I'll just move on. Anyway, there's a lot of attempted V triggers, even a few that hit home. Hangman gets hit with a lot of knees, but then gets into Kenny's face about it. And lays into him with some forearms. Kenny goes for another knee, but gets nailed in the face with a massive clothesline. Which knocks him out. Hangman falls down as well. And then the Young Bucks starts to walk down the ramp. They look like hell, like they walk slowly because they just went through a hell of a match. But then, as they're walking down, the match continues as continues back and forth. Ultimately, Kenny gets the upper hand, goes for the one-winged angel, but Hangman reverses it uses a one-winged angel of his own, but gets a 2 count. Anyway, Hangman then goes onto the apron. Hangman goes onto the. They fight towards the apron. The Young Bucks are standing there, but they're not doing anything. They're just standing there looking at things. Anyway, Hangman knocks Kenny into the ring, hits a buckshot lariat into the back of his head, and Kenny is wobbling. Hangman then goes to the other side of the ring. He sees one of the Young Bucks standing there, and the Young Bucks just nods at him. Hangman rolls into the ring, hits another buckshot lariat onto Kenny. This time full face on. 1, 2, 3. New AEW champion. I mean, congratulations to Hangman Page, but I don't know. That was weird. I guess I was expecting a lot more shenanigans, or a lot more fighting. Like Hangman needed to overcome a lot more odds to beat Kenny Omega, but no. He just had to knock out Don Callis, and then he was able to beat Kenny. Like, Kenny didn't even hit the one-winged angel on him, and he kicked out of it, because a lot of people were expecting that would happen, but no, the person who kicked out of the one-winged angel was Kenny Omega. I don't know. I guess I was expecting a lot more. I mean, the match itself was good, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I guess I was expecting a lot more. I've seen some people mention that on Rampage that Hangman apologized to the Young Bucks, and that might be why they didn't do anything. Why they just basically said, "Yeah, go ahead, beat him." Anyway, the Dark Order comes out after this. One offers a beer to Hangman, but he slaps it out of his face and hugs them and celebrates with them, and we go off air. And that's the end. Nothing else I can say. That was the end of the show. Yeah, that's it. It was overall a good show. But I felt like maybe you didn't need that many matches. Like the tag match with Cody and Pac versus Malakai and Andrade could have maybe been cut, because I feel like the show didn't need this many matches on the show. Like, you could have cut maybe a little bit. I feel like almost some of these matches were pressed for time, especially the main event for me, but maybe that's just me. Maybe I just had too high expectations. And maybe it's because the last AEW show I saw was All Out, which was an excellent show. But, this was good. Like, this was a good show. Not the greatest show I've ever seen, but it was good. Definitely check it out. And that was the last AEW show for the year, so yeah, don't expect me to do another one for a while. Maybe not ever, I don't know. Anyway, I'll see you guys some other time.